Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, Bronte has broken lesser men, but not me. I was broken by this! We're talking about breaks! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. Our guest today is a very much renowned and deservedly so writer and artist. Give it up, Capers, for Emma Vieceli!
Woo! Crowd goes wild! I don't know how to keep up with your energy, Scott. You're like just a tornado of energy, and I'm sat here gripping my coffee for dear life, being like, how does he do that? That's amazing.
Not bad for 10 past 11 in the morning.
I'm very impressed. Very, very impressed.
Honestly, you wouldn't be the first person to fail to keep up with my raw, magnetic energy. Bah.
Well, I'll make efforts. I will try.
Well, because, there's a lot to get excited about, because in researching you for this episode, I found that you've done so much stuff, and it's all good!
Yay!
It's all good, Emma! It's all good!
Well, many years ago, I kind of set out saying, I'm going to get my own acronym wrong now, but basically, I think comics should be for everyone, about anything, by anyone. The acronym is FAB. So it meant that setting out, I kind of thought, well, I want to make sure I actually live by that motto and try and jump around and do loads of different projects for different kinds of audiences. And comics can do anything. So I've kind of, I spent a lot of my career just leaping around and seeing just different corners of the industry, really.
That's a great motto to live by. I work for Thunderbirds and the Beatles, so you know.
Right, yeah, so, Fab, I made that word up, and then the Beatles came forward in time and stole it. It's just...
Copyright, Emma Vieceli.
So rude. Yeah.
Right, so we're going to get into all of your magnificent work in a moment. Before we do that, let's talk about you. Who are you? What do you do? What's your grand place in the cosmic scheme? Would you fade away if Thanos snapped his finger?
Oh, probably. I'd be like, ooh, a nap. And also 5-year nap.
Darling, I'm becoming all flaky.
Gosh, who am I? I'm probably not quite as interesting as the comics I make. But I am Emma, and I'm originally an Essex girl, now based in Cambridge.
Whereabouts in Cambridge are you based?
I'm
giving away your address.
Well, yes, I'm in a secret bunker, Scott, somewhere to the north of Cambridge.
And that's just because I was born in Cambridge.
Oh,
well,
you don't have that Edinburgh twang.
Well, as many people who listen to the show know, I come from a military family, so I was born in Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire.
Oh, I know it well, yes.
And I don't remember it because before I had the ability to form memories in my brain, we moved away to Shropshire, a place called Shrewsbury, where my sister was born, and then to Norfolk, a place called Colchester, then to Scotland, to Ayrshire, then down to Berkshire, then to Oxfordshire, and then I stayed until I was 18.
Wow. See, funnily enough, my mum's family is Ayrshire, but I don't remember that very much either, so we've swapped over at some point.
Whereabouts in Ayrshire? Ooh.
I have no idea. I've even been there. Well, I have been there. It was beautiful, and I was too young to remember where it was. I just know it was.
Do you remember seeing an island? Do you remember seeing a lovely island?
She said. I genuinely don't remember.
Because that might have been Arran, which is near where I lived. I lived in Irvine. Near Troon, which is where I went to school, right opposite the Isle of Arran.
My mum will be so angry. Rings a bell. The name rings a bell. Let's say yes. Yes.
Let's say yes. I won't tax you on your Scottish geography.
It's uncanny how our lives have crossed over so accurately.
Strangers in the night. No.
So that's me. And now I stopped doing art pre GCSE at school for through amusing stories about art teachers. Then went into doing theatre training because I thought, God, being an artist is so unlikely, and that's not a real job. I'll train in acting instead, which is way more secure and stable.
Equally viable.
Equally viable, way more viable. And then it's kind of, I grew up just loving comics, video games, cartoons, the usual thing, was obsessed. And I love theatre.
That's so rare on this show. So rare.
I know, so rare. I've dipped back into theatre now for fun, which is awesome actually, and a fantastic antidote to working in the solitary world of comics. But it's telling of how much I love comics, and that even when I was sort of like, no, that's not the path I'm going to follow, it just sort of crept up behind me and went, this is what you want to do.
You can't escape us.
Totally. I'm very happy about that.
Well, I'm very happy about that as well, because it meant you've given us so many great things, and I can't believe here's the thing though, I had read some of your work before I found out you're going to do this episode, because I read the Life is Strange graphic novel, because I'm a huge fan of Life is Strange, even though I haven't played the second one yet. I'm sorry. It's in my list. It's in my queue.
Don't worry. Do you know what? It's funny. I didn't play the second one for quite a long time, because originally the Life is Strange contract was going to be just a 4-issue miniseries. So I told myself, right, well, I'm not going to play the second in my, first game headspace. So I won't let myself play the second game. And then we went ongoing, which is fantastic news for the comic. But it meant I was like, well, I'm not waiting forever to play this game. So I have now dipped in. But we can definitely talk about Life is Strange.
we have to, because play the game, loved it. We all fucking love it.
Yeah.
And surprised to hear how few people knew about it when I first started playing it. It's got a bit more traction now.
Oh, it's definitely cult now. I think it's like yeah. I mean, the first game was out, 4-5 years ago? It's quite a long time ago.
Because it's right when the episodic game boom was happening with Telltale, which is now sadly gone.
I know, rest in peace, Telltale. And I think you had Telltale were doing this sort of irreverent, I love the Telltale game. I've always loved story discovery games. I was a point and click player many years back. And so I loved what Telltale were doing, and generally the stuff I was playing from them was more like Tales from the Borderlands, and it was all like this ridiculous high octane comedy stuff. So Life is Strange was just a game changer. It was so
much gentler.
Yeah, it was just so. I hate using the word deep because that's really wanky, but it just went way deeper than other. It kind of went. Oh, how other things. Get right in with it and dig down deep and tear your heart out and jump on it a few times. I've never played a game before where I literally had to put the controller down and harden a few times, because you can't ask that question of me. I don't know how to answer the question. When a decision would come up that you're like, huge experience playing those.
You see, I didn't have that experience. I had a very great experience playing it, but that experience you described, I had more with the Game of Thrones Telltale game. In Game of Thrones, when a character dies and you feel really bad, in the Game of Thrones game, that happens, but it's your fault.
Your fault, yes, it's all on you.
You did it! You killed them, you bastard! I'm sorry, I didn't know!
Yeah, it's pretty horrific. And then you have, a truly evil choose your own sort of story game is the one where I always joke about going back. I don't know if you ever played many years back, Black and White, when that came out, and it purported to be a real you're gonna have to make such tough decisions. There were a spout of that, like that one. There was Fable. It was all kind of like you're going to be put in these difficult positions, when in reality a lot of the choices were, are you going to drown the puppy or save the orphanage? Whoa, the choice is yours. Whereas
what an incredibly complex moral conundrum.
Gosh, I don't know. Whereas a lot of the games now, they really do go down the line of there is no right answer, because often in life you're going to make bad choices. And which of the bad choices do you want to make? And that's really tough.
Should we let the traumatized bully girl jump to her death or not? Okay. Guys, the whole thing. But then the comic comes, and here's the end of Life is Strange, the game. There's two branching paths. You choose one or choose the other. Now, I do like the game, but I'm just going to say it right here. I have no filter. The ending to Life is Strange is bullshit.
Right. I've had a lot of conversations with people about it. And do you know what contextualized it for me? And even I say this is like a diehard fan of the game. Even for me, at the end of the game, I felt initially like, oh, okay. Until someone pointed out that the entire game is an elaborate wrapping of the trolley problem.
Now we're getting into
right?
it.
At which point you're like, oh, okay. It's like contextualizing the trolley problem. So now that you've spent that time with those characters, now make that very basic moral choice and see how hard or easy it is to make. And that actually made me go, oh, interesting. Okay.
That is interesting. And Capers, if you don't know what the trolley problem is, watch an episode of The Good Place.
Right, yeah, exactly. We all know what it is because of thank you, Good Place.
We don't have time to hypothesize philosophical moral conundrums to you. We've got a show to do. But so on there's multiple endings. On one of the endings splits off and comes Life is Strange, the comic. And I just thought it was just going to be possibly a straight-up retelling of what happened after that, and maybe some time travel shenanigans thrown in. Oh no! It throws a curveball I never saw coming. Now we're dealing with motherfucking string theory.
Woohoo! I mean, I could have made life easier for myself.
But life is strange, not easy.
Life is strange. So yeah, no, I set myself an incredibly tough challenge, but I've really enjoyed it. And exactly as you say, there are lots of spin-off things, and you could argue that many comics out there are basically taking existing characters and doing fun things with them. It's a very valid way of telling a comic. But with this, I just thought, no, this franchise deserves more. Like, I don't want to just do a soap opera story about them. I want to bring something that's only going to happen in the comics, or like this is bringing like a new element to the comics verse of it. And
you made me frightened because in this version of the comics, our two characters that we've seen for a long time have formed a relationship, and it seems like they're going to get pulled apart not by difference of opinion or just growing apart as people, by the cosmic forces of reality itself. It's like, no, I'm invested.
Oh, I'm really glad. That's awesome. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It really has.
You can tell you had a lot of fun writing it because, near the end, I won't give away too much. There's a lovely little reference to Quantum Leap, which I like.
Yes. Years ago when I was working on Gem with Kelly Thompson, she put a reference in one of our issues, and I read the script, and it had, I don't know if you ever saw Gem, but basically it had a bunch of the characters dressed as Karate Kids, not like literally as the costumes from the Halloween party in Karate Kid. So you had like someone was dressed in the shower, and someone was a few of them were in like the bullies' skeleton costumes, and at the point I read that in the script, I was like, oh, I don't know, Kelly, it's risky because like, what if people don't know what you're talking about? And she was just like, they're gonna know. Trust me. Like, they're gonna.
It's the Karate Kid. It's a safe bet.
And I was proved so wrong when that issue came out, and it was fantastic because you realise that everyone reading comics is me. Like we're all the same people. We're all like, I loved that film. I recognise those references. So when it came to writing that moment, I wanted to put that reference to Quantum Leap in so much, and Warren was absolutely the character who would bring up that reference. And that bittersweet twist on it, I wanted to do. And I remember thinking, like, I'm relying here on a basic reference that some readers might not know, but it might make them go and look up what Quantum Leap is. But the people who know Quantum Leap might not remember the ending or might not have seen the ending. But then there's going to be that section who remember it very well, remember the ending very well, and so are able to read that line for what it means, and what Warren means it to mean. So that
was a heartbreaking moment for E right there. Jeez.
I'm really glad. See, you were that special target.
Theorizing that one can time travel within her own lifetime, Max Caulfield stepped into the Quantum Leap accelerator and vanished.
Always the original theme tune, not the funky revamped one they did later.
Okay. And so Max Caulfield finds herself leaping from life to life, striving to put right what once went wrong, and hoping each time that her next leap would be the leap home.
Bracket
to Chloe!
all her life.
I mean, me personally, I would have gone with a Sliders reference, but that's even more obscure. So I think Quantum Leap was a safe bet.
Yeah. No, I was happy with that, and it's really great when people mention it, and I'm like, hooray, it worked. But yeah, thank you, Kelly Thompson, for proving to me that yes, you can reference all the nerdy things and trust that readers are going to be on board with you. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, writers have been doing that, but yeah, some of my favourite writers have done like Joss Whedon, Peter David, and all that, get that for years. So it's a tried and tested thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I ever doubted it, to be honest. It's it's great. We love it. We love our geek references, obviously. But yeah, I'm really, really glad it's working for you. And I
can't wait for volume 2.
Are you on the singles, or are you waiting for the volumes?
I get the volumes.
That's awesome.
I mean, if I ever buy hard copy comics nowadays, I always buy in like volumes trade collections and stuff like that, because I find it's a bit better in terms of value, and also otherwise I've just got like piles of comics everywhere, and I live in a box, so in a grotto, so it's difficult to have singles.
Sense. It does make sense. Well, much as we'll swing back round to it, it's part of why Breaks is in the format it's in, because single issues do become a pain. But it means that I won't spoil anything from Arc 2 of the Life is Strange comic at this point.
Absolutely,
but
I wouldn't ask
look
you to.
forward to picking it up.
And that's a nice segue into Breaks. Now, before we get into Breaks, I just want to know, spoiler territory. How far do you want to go?
Oh, good. Well, I mean, book 1's been out for like over a year, so I mean,
because it's up here. Because I want people to go and read this book.
Right, good. Well, me too. We're in the same mind there.
Well, we'll keep a general overview and see how far we can go as we go.
One of the beauties of Breaks is that it's very, very hard to spoiler it, because we spoiler it in the first page.
Oh yeah.
It literally
there's
starts...
foreshadowing, and then there's, oh god, I'm covering you with a shadow, and it's shaped in the letter 4. I don't know.
Precisely. A shadow in the shape of the number 4. When Mullin Ryden and I co-wrote the story a good 7 or 8 years ago now, scarily. We were writing it as part of like a group writing project, purely for fun, throwing in original characters and like building the story. And then at some point this was all done anonymously, like all writing online under pen names. And at some point I was like, wait, this is actually good. This is turning into a stronger story than the one I originally had for the character I brought to this. So we sort of unmasked, and every time I say that, I do the gesture, even though no one can see me. I am doing an unmask.
I thought you were doing the gesture as you said. Is she doing like the Jim Carrey mask thing?
Of course I am. So we kind of unmasked.
Old man finally. Emma Vieceli.
It's true, and I said I'm an old man, and I like this story. So I was like,
I was making a Scooby-Doo reference. Sorry.
Yeah, I could have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for Scott on that damn podcast. So I basically said, well, actually, I'm a comic artist, and she was like, oh, well, actually, I'm a Swedish horror author. So I was like, oh, okay, great.
Hello, I'm a Swedish horror author. Nice to meet you.
So. It transpired that both of us were really keen to take it forward. Sorry, can you hear my messenger pinging? Hopefully not. It's just started pinging. If you can, it's just like making nice fairy sounds in the background. So
we get it. You're popular.
Ambience. So at that point we'd been working in prose, literally where you'd sort of, one would write a paragraph, the other writes a paragraph, one might write a chapter, because it just depended how much of the story would jump in, and then we'd throw curveballs for each other. Like you'd sort of, it was so fresh, because you'd write something and then you'd hand it over, and the other writer would throw in a scene where you'd be like, oh my God, I hadn't even seen that coming. So then you're like, right, okay, I need to respond to that. And the entire communication was done in story. We never planned anything. It was just this story reacting to itself, which was really fun.
George R.R. Martin way of doing things. Because apparently that's how he writes.
Right. Dum-de-dum, who shall I kill today?
No. I mean, in terms of an approach, in terms of structure, because one of the big things that's come to light with talking about Game of Thrones again, with the advent of the season that shall not be named, is that D&D, Weiss and Benioff, they have their method of writing is come up with a beginning, come up with an end, and work towards that end from the beginning, which is a perfectly valid form of writing, but it conflicts with George R.R. Martin's way of writing, which is start at the beginning and let the story develop organically.
And I think, as with so many answers to these kind of situations, I'll always sit somewhere in the middle, in that but in this particular situation, I had I basically entered that. Let's call it a writing experiment, I guess. It was literally we're between contracts, let's do something for fun. So I had this story about Cortland, and I'd been doing research
Cortland, oh my baby.
So he was sort of my bubba, and I had this story, and I so his backstory and where he was going I kind of had, but obviously Ian was not in my story. And
Ian, my other baby.
And this fascinating thing happened when we started weaving these characters together, and it was just like this amazing click moment of going, that's what I was missing. That's what wasn't in my story. It's so obvious now. Like literally when people talk about the characters speaking to you, it was just really, again, using wanky terms, but it was one of these moments where it was almost like Cortland turned around to me and just went, how did you not know I was gay? It's so obvious. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I see this? And yeah, that just clicked the whole story into place. So then I was like, I feel like I want to do this as a comic because, this is a kind of story. I grew up wanting more of these kind of stories on my shelves. I still want more of these stories on my shelves. And I think we're in a position where we can do it. This was like 6 years ago. It's so scary because we also decided we wanted to do it because of the kind of, I'm not going to say target demographic, because actually I'm always amazed at how
Now that's a wanky term. I don't like that.
That is a wanky term.
It's been ruined by Hollywood executives for millennia now.
Yeah, it has. And so it's not that there was a group we were aiming the story for, but there were certain people we definitely wanted it to get in front of. And a lot of those kind of readers are not going into bookshops or comic shops. They're sitting and reading webcomics. So we were like, right, we know we want to do this story, and we know we want to get it in front of the eyes of people who we feel should be seeing it. So we're going to, because we're masochists and stupid, we're going to give it away for free online. So we're not going to do it through the usual book route, publishing route. We're going to make it in our own time for no money. We'll give it away for free.
You fools!
Because we're crazy. And the downside of that is that it meant we could only do one page a week. Or I'm saying we, obviously, I'm doing the comicking aspect of it. So Mullin has been taking our story and adapting it down into like first draft comic scripts, which she does very, very well. And this is like her first time writing comics, so it's amazing. And then I take it from there and do like a pass over it, and then I take it from that point on. So creatively, it takes a lot of work, But yeah, because of the way we wanted to put it out there, we've been doing a page a week, which is why it takes so long for the comics to come together. But it was all done.
That's why it's been 7 years.
Yeah, exactly. But we've never missed a week. It's been every Monday evening for 6 years. We've released a page.
More than I can say for this show, God.
Well, it's tough. Schedules are hard. It is really hard. And
it wasn't
for me,
schedule. It's the fact that my laptop exploded.
Well, that's also a problem. Yeah, that makes things difficult. I can see that being hard. But yeah, so because we obviously have to be keeping up other work and contracts, I need to pay to eat and that kind of thing. So that's how it took the shape it did. And now here I am. This is the first time that, because book 2's ready, and we've got Soaring Penguin printed book 1 for us, which is lovely of them because they're independent and they care about the story. So it's one of those cases, they've got good distribution channels, so we were able to say, we trust you to print this. It's all done independently. So again, there's no book deal, there's no advance, there's nothing like that. It's all just about getting the comic out there. So with book 2, I just said to them, look, how would you feel about if I tried to do a Kickstarter for a special edition? Because at this stage, I think maybe we're in a position where we can ask for a little bit of funding.
I'd say you could have asked for funding for the first one, if I'm being honest.
Oh,
it's so good. I mean, my reaction to it while I was reading it was, oh, this is good, this is good, but I don't want to read it, And the reason why is because it reminded me viscerally about how similar the British school experience is to being in the mafia.
Oh God, yeah, school's evil, can be evil.
Oh God, because I met people like Spence, and I'm not gonna pretend like all the schools I went to were especially hard or rougher, or we didn't like knife crime and stuff. That was never the case, but. When you put this many human beings together over such a long period of time, I think we get very tribal. I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago on the talking about psychologists, superheroes. I believe humanity gets very tribal, and the mafia is an example of a tribe, I guess. Not a nice one, but still.
Yeah. No, it's true, and it is an absolute pressure cooker. You know, locally different. They are cookers that throw a lot of very different people are thrown together into one tight environment and told this few years is going to define the course of your future. Like, what are you going to do with your life? And certain archetypes do rise out, and we've all known someone like Spence who's going to be that person who's sort of, you know, big fish in a small pond fighting for their position. And it's no wonder kids fight for their position. There's so many elements at play in that environment, and it's like this sort of little microcosm of the world, but you're graded for it as well, like, to make it even worse.
No, it gets into this real human thing, I think, beyond school, of this idea of stature and like self-influenced, this idea of respect or something. Like, Spence goes off on people, and that's putting it mildly, because he feels disrespected. And maybe I'm just wrong, but I've been disrespected multiple times across my life. Probably like 3 times today already, before I even started this episode. And it's never really bothered me. And I never quite understood. I mean, I understand why, I guess, but from a observant sort of scientific viewpoint.
Keep losing you now.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I understand. It's so perplexed to me. People get angry over either real or perceived slights.
Well, everyone comes from a different environment, and without going too deep into it, a character like Spence, his home environment has taught him that if you're going to be a man, because a lot of breaks deals with toxic masculinity. You know, it's an angle on. It's a very much the feminism is for everyone kind of angle on a story, and how like boys and men suffer in this environment just as much as girls in some ways. And he's very much coming from that world of like, if you're going to be a man, you've got to be respected, and this is what he's been brought up learning. And so his criteria on what it takes to be a success is people respecting him and fearing him, and it's a really it makes for a pretty messed up individual, unfortunately.
and you end up not sympathizing with him, but pitying him quite a bit. He's the kind of guy that I think, like, oh dear, you should have just been born like 600 years earlier.
He is a bit pitiable, and that's not in any. I mean, there's no way I'm forgiving bullish behavior. I think bullies are just the worst. Just
preach.
It's all totally. But on the other hand, Breaks is all and how those flaws are given to us by what's gone before. And every character in Breaks is flawed. Like, there isn't a single character, with the exception of perhaps Anna,
there's a big flaw. I want to talk about it. Okay, so I was really worried at one point. I'm just going to say this, and you decide whether or not we talk about it. We can edit it out if necessary. So there's a scene where Ian, one of the main characters, kisses an unconscious other main character, Cortland, after he's been beaten up. And I was writing notes when I was reading this, and my notes for that was, Ian kissed Cortland while unconscious, what?
You do not do this thing. This is a thing you do not do.
And I was so glad. I was really, really worried, but later on in the comic, you talk about how that was not okay.
Yeah.
And I was so glad, because it's like, okay. Because it really made me dislike the character of Ian.
Which it should. I mean, as much as the fact that also we have these archetypes of heroes, of what we expect a hero to be, and we will step up to the plate. Ian does not step up to the plate. He doesn't step in when shit's going down. He's there, he sees it happening, and he calls an ambulance afterwards. Like, that's not heroic. That's not what we see as heroic. No. And then he does, what you're talking about.
Then he assaults him.
Yeah, so
because it is an assault.
He's totally flawed.
Unless you are told by 3 fairies that kissing an unconscious person is going to save the kingdom, there's no excuse. And even then, that's a bit shady.
Yeah, and then, Cortland himself is one of the most flawed characters. So there, and I grew up reading, fluffy romance comics, and I've read comics where people do things like, oh, I'm going to kiss the person I fancy while they're unconscious, and then when that person realizes they're going to they then go, oh, thank you, it's so lovely that you care that much about me. It's like, no, that's wrong. That's not the way we treat people. And so it was, there's lots of things.
Go for the forehead or something, even then.
There's a lot of things we set out to do with Breaks, like show that flawed characters. That having flaws is human. You're going to have flaws. You're going to make mistakes. That there are certain mistakes that almost get condoned sometimes in popular media. That like, no, those are not mistakes you're allowed to make. But yeah, so one of the, I mean, from the very beginning with the prose version, that the moment of the kiss, we're just spoiling the whole book, guys. Go read it. It's great. The moment when he realizes I just loved the way it played out in the comic, and especially because we were releasing it page by page online. So of course you've got people invested and waiting. And the moment they saw Ian wearing that shirt, they were jumping back to the beginning of the comic and going, oh, "We caught up to that moment now," and knew what was coming. But no one was expecting it to have the conclusion that it did, because it's like, oh yeah, no, this isn't going to be what you think it's going to be. So we've had, using the weekly format has actually been really fun to take these moments and go like, we've built this point up, but actually this is going to go a different way to you think it's going to go.
And I really like, I think the way you formatted it works very well for webcomic, and also kind of works well for a collected graphic novel, because it's a very slow burn in terms of the story. It's very much focused on character development, which I love. I think more things should do it. I mean, I like the things were bit more fast-paced, but I also like it where it's just like, let's just really play out the scene and explore every single avenue that these characters could take in a very naturalistic way.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work for everyone. We know it is absolutely a slow, character-driven story. Like it has a path and it's got lots of twists and turns and there's a mystery, but it's a slow digest for a story, because we want it to like sink in. And we're lucky that we can do that. Well, I say we can. We've chosen to do it for free, so we're able to do that. We're not beholden to anyone. I totally get that, when you're working on shiny, glossy, full color 20 pages, Life is Strange storytelling, you're working on someone else's money, they're having to print it, so you got to move things a bit faster. But breaks, we get to really take our time with it.
Yeah, and it shows, and it works really well because of it. And another reason why it works so well is because, and this is slightly unrealistic, but still, all of the British school children are goddamn beautiful.
Oh,
all of them.
Right?
Have you even been to a British school? We are all ugly fuckers.
Love it. Oh, yeah.
We only get pretty like second year of university.
So interesting. I think comics does something magical, doesn't it? I definitely didn't design them all to be beautiful, actually. But
it's that yaoi manga style that where they're all just like, oh, the glowy, expressive eyes. Oh my god! I love this art style because I've always maintained that my preferred kind of art style is something that's sort of a mix between sort of naturalistic, realistic art and also very cartoony art.
Great. Yeah.
This is the sort of perfect blend of it, because they're very they're very naturalistic sort of postures and body types and stuff like that, although many of the guys tend to go for like the skinny sort of yaoi as an anime sort of thing. But also what I love about it is the characters are also facially expressive.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, because there's so many good comics that have great art that aren't that expressive, and it really, really annoys, because like, this is the whole point.
I think this is where, and I've spoken to a few creators who are similar to me, coming from theatre into comics is actually really, really interesting. There's quite a few artists out there who do theatre and performance, and it means that you're acting when you're drawing your characters. Like, I can't, for me, I'm thinking, well, if I was in this scene and I'm playing this, what would I be doing? How would my posture be looking? How would I express?
It's like
this?
rehearsal.
Yeah, it's acting in comics is actually, you're right to pick that up. I find there's a lot of stuff I read where I'll be like, this is beautiful, it's technically gorgeous, but for me, I'd always rather read something that's maybe not technically perfect but makes me feel something. I want emotion, and I want to see characters reacting to things. I mean, that's not to blanket.
I want to feel, damn it!
Yeah, give me the feels. But it's...
Oh, you gave me the feels.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad I gave you the feels.
Because the thing with being so expressive is that you feel every high and also every low.
Well, we were also playing with a lot of techniques that, because I'm working in a very limited color palette, which is mostly because of time, essentially. I'm working for free and I had to speed the process up. But I'm getting to play with a lot of techniques. When I used to do, I used to do a lot of work in black and white, and I would do a lot of tone work, which I don't really get to do these days because I'm often working with colorists, which is in itself awesome. But they're just different ways of comicking. But with breaks, I've been able to go back to a lot of my tone work. And so there's a lot of subtext in those tones that I've been really impressed of how many readers are picking up on that stuff. So like Cortland's Snake's tone, which is every time it appears, that is telling you what his emotive state is. Like, you get a sense.
He's in knots. He's bundled up. It's a Gordian snake knot.
Yeah, exactly. So you get a sense, even if he's not saying it, or even if his expression isn't showing it, you're already going, oh, he's going to blow. Like, something bad's coming. So things like that.
It's that underlying tension. It's very, very good. I noticed that, and I did wonder, like, what's that exactly for? But now that you said that, it's kind of like, oh yeah.
It's one of those things
where
even if a reader doesn't consciously realize that's what it's doing, it's sort of there as a subconscious. It's constantly imprinting on you as you read it. I'm a big fan of playing with pages, again, in a way that I don't necessarily get to do so much when I'm working on monthlies as an artist, because you are limited by space and money. But when you've got no limits, you get to really play with the page. I mean, like, case in point, the scene we were talking about earlier with the party, when everything kind of, you think it's going to go great and then everything doesn't go great. We have like a bit where a page turns and it's just one solid black page, which you could never do that for Marvel. Like, you're just saying, hey, do you mind paying for just to have one page that's just nothing on it? That, and I do get that. So it's really fun when we're in control of the pages ourselves to go, well, actually this page is just black. I just want,
it's our comic and we can do whatever the fuck we like.
And it means that, again, subconsciously the reader is being manipulated just enough that you've got that moment, that beat to take in what's just happened. And I love being able to do that with a page. And it's something,
there's another page. Oh, it's all black. Oh, I'm sad now.
It's fun. It's good if people pick up on it. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the way you do it without the wide expression of color, as you say, does work very well. I was very taken with the Life is Strange comic and the vast array of beautiful.
I got so lucky there. Yeah. Andrea, so he's just brilliant. I mean, they both are. Claudia, she's very new to comics. We're jumping to Life is Strange now. But Life is Strange is the first time I've written comics for myself a lot. Most of the time, people probably know me as an artist more than a writer, because I do a lot of work on like comics with writers, which I also love. I love doing all aspects of it. Comics are just a challenge, every different role you take. But a lot of the time when I've written, it's always been for myself, with the exception of some like super short snippets and things. But this was the first time I'd been approached to actually write like a monthly comic for someone else. And going into it, I thought, God, this is going to be strange, because life is strange. And there's no way I can't write. When I write my scripts, I very much speak to Claudia in them, where I'm saying, like, but when I'm writing them, there'll be a way how I imagine I would probably draw that. I hope in a way it's nice for her working with a writer who is an artist, because it means that I'm not going to write stuff like, in one panel the car jumps over a bridge and lands and does a spin and someone gets out of it, like that. I'm not going to write that panel, because it's an impossible panel to draw. So generally when I'm writing scripts, I'm writing them knowing that as an artist, this works, this does not work, I can give suggestions. But you don't know what you're going to get when the pages come back. And I helped choose her.
I can't make us laugh, a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Never know.
That was a terrible impression.
That was really bad. It took me a good few words to know what you were doing there.
Okay, so that's a penny in the bad impression jar for me. Damn it. I'm going to have to stick with fucking Mickey and Emperor Palpatine. God damn.
I'm sorry. But, yeah.
Life is like a box of chocolates, folks.
That was better. Yeah, that was better.
No.
Yeah. Mickey Gump. So yeah, when the first issue came back from Claudia, and then seeing Andrea's colours on it, I was just like, oh, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. This looks amazing. Really chuffed with it. But obviously breaks, I can't rely on anyone else in breaks. It's just me.
Well, that's a good person to rely on.
True.
I think your work speaks for itself. And I like so many things about it. The art's great, the writing's great, it's all great. Now, before we talk about the Kickstarter for the next one, which I'm excited to talk about. I want to talk about some of your other work. Now,
Sure.
I've only read Breaks and Life is Strange of yours. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I went to your website to see what other little stuff you've done. Holy shit! You've done Gem and the Hologram, Supergirl, Young Avengers, and motherfucking Back to the motherfucking Future!
Yeah, I spent a couple of years basically feeding my inner young teen Emma was just like on cloud nine. All my favorite characters, the Eighth Doctor as well. Like basically every character that I grew up loving, I got to draw in the last couple of years. I feel incredibly lucky.
I mean, oh god. Now, you mentioned Gem and the Holograms earlier. Now, the only knowledge I have of Gem and the Holograms is like the occasional video that pops up on YouTube, like some retrospective of Gem and the Holograms. And also, for my sins, I saw the movie.
Oh, I did not see the movie. I actually did not see it. Yeah.
Don't do it. It's wrong.
That was
it's
the
just
sense I
wrong.
got.
I mean, okay, so I'm not a fan of Gem and the Holograms, okay, so I don't know anything about it. And a fan might come and say, oh, it's a piece of shit. I'm pretty sure most of them did. But I'm not a fan, so I just viewed it as a movie, and as a movie, it's shit.
Damn, so it doesn't even stand up just as a film. That's a pity.
No,
it's... Oh, dear.
God.
It's
why?
much like,
Why?
I mean, one of my favorite comics of all time is Dylan Dog, the Italian series, and the film of that makes me cry so much.
Oh, yeah, that's the one with Brandon Routh.
Yes,
where
Brandon Routh was actually, I thought, a fantastic choice of casting. I was like, oh, I could see this working. And that film, it was like literally someone had, I don't know if it's happened with Gem in the same way, that the Dylan Dog movie felt to me like someone had the rights to this comic and someone else had like a cheesy schlock zombie film script. And so they were like, hey, we've got a script about a pop star and we've got the rights to this title. Let's just put them together. I don't know.
I don't think it was that. I think what it was they wanted to do what most Hollywood studio executives are doing right now, which is preying on people's nostalgia. They wanted to do Gem and the Holograms to get bums in seats, but they didn't think that a movie like the actual show, which is about a teenager who inherits a record label and they gets a bunch of holographic earrings and then becomes like a pop star / crime fighter.
It's science fiction magical girl, like, and you can't take the science fiction out of Gem.
They basically did, with us one exception, which doesn't make any sense. And they basically, I hate it. And this Gem is a great analogy for any movie project, any movie that wants to cash in on people's nostalgia and have that brand recognition thing, but isn't willing to commit to the slightly more bizarre aspects of it and ends up disrespecting the thing it came from.
Yeah, conversely, when it was Kelly Thompson writing and Sophie Campbell on art for when they first launched the Gem comic with IDW, and it was like, I was so excited. As a Gem fan, I was excited. As a Sophie Campbell fan, I was excited because I knew what an amazing job she'd do. And they just knocked it out of the park. They did everything you're saying you should do, which is, yes, of course we're preying on nostalgia because we're making a comic for people who grew up loving Gem. But they took it and now it's stylish, it's punky, it's very much still got the sci-fi element. They just did such a good job of it.
But all in all the right ways.
Exactly. And so when Arc 2 came around, the viral arc, and they were like, would you want to jump in on Arc? I was just like, are you kidding me? Gee, let me think about that for about minus 10 seconds. It was incredible. Although following Sophie Campbell was terrifying.
I mean, I'm sure it came together very, very well. Just as a note for the future movie makers, remember that? Do you ever seen that film, the recent film Annie, the remake of Annie?
You know what? I didn't. No, I saw clips of it. I know my little niece loved it.
Well, good for your little niece, but she's wrong. No, no.
It wasn't made for us, Scott.
No, it wasn't. In fairness, it wasn't. But here's the thing. It starts with a little ginger girl smiling, happy, and dancing in front of a classroom, and then she's sort of pushed out of the way by the new Annie. And and here's the thing. If you want to remake Annie, great. If you want to update it, great.
But don't disrespect what she was.
Yes, and exactly. So That's the note for all you filmmakers out there. Don't do that, and you'll be fine. If you want to... there's so many else. So, Young Avengers. I read Young Avengers. We've only got a limited amount of time. There's so much I want to talk about.
Well, Young Avengers, I jumped in. I did very, very small amount on Young Avengers, but I was privileged when Jamie and Kieran were writing the end of the party that kind of ended the whole thing. I think Kieran's exact words were, "I knew if I didn't let Emma finish the Billy and Teddy story, she'd kill me." So that was. So
that's Wiccan and Hulkling, right?
Yeah, so I got to draw the end of their story, which was just so amazing. Because when Kieran first signed up to do Young Avengers, I was a massive fan of the original Young Avengers run. And so I remember we were sitting in a pub and he was like, right, so tell me about Young Avengers. Like, what do I need to know about Young Avengers? And so, I mean, he knew what a massive fan I was of it, and especially of those guys. So that was just a privilege to jump in on that.
I only read like the first run of Young Avengers. I didn't really keep up with it. I struggle to keep up with a lot of Marvel stuff nowadays because there's so much and it's all event comics and I don't care. But...
Yeah. Well, Kieran and Jamie are very good. They've always been good at pulling in other I don't want to just say friends, but the other people in the industry, like who they're like, hey guys, jump in. You know, they're very good at sharing around, saying we're doing something that's working. Do you want to join in and have a go on it? You know, they're really good for that. So they've done it for Wictiv as well, and I've been in a couple of their collected, like where you have people take on mini stories. They did it for Phonogram. Like they've always been good for that, and I feel very privileged that I got to do Phonogram, Young Avengers, and Wictiv. So thank you, Jamie and Kieran. I love you.
I mean, that's the great thing about this industry. You get to collaborate with so many great people. In fact, you have collaborated with some people who've been on the show before. You've done stuff like a manga Shakespeare stuff with Self-Made Hero.
Yeah.
We talked about the show. You did covers for River of London with by Ben Aronovich, who've had on the show. And you recently did, well, I don't know how recently. It was the Scorpio Alex Rider graphic novel.
Scorpio, with Anthony.
With Anthony Johnston. And I remember reading the first Alex Rider graphic novel and the second one. I didn't keep up with it after that. Because I'd already read the books. You know,
I mean, Scorpio was... I mean, I never really read Alex Rider growing up. But when they offered me the job, obviously, I got caught up with the series because I feel like if you're doing an adaptation, whether you're the artist or the writer, you need to know that source material backwards. I mean, that's how I did it with Manga Shakespeare as well. Like, I want to be able to refer to... I want to foreshadow... I have to know the material. And actually, I thought Scorpio was just a phenomenal book. It's such a turning point book. And I love that when Walker brought me on, they'd seen me doing, they'd seen my Vampire Academy series for Penguin at the time. And they basically literally said, we're doing the Alex Rider series. And this is the point in the series where everything needs to grow up a bit. It needs to get a bit darker, a bit angsty.
That was I remember reading the books. That was sort of where I dropped off because it became like a bit too of it. But that was the point where it was like, oh shit's getting dark. It was
dark. And they were like, and we kind of, I'll never forget them saying, they were like, we kind of feel like there's maybe more female readers than we thought there were for Alex Rider. And we're wondering if you know, can you help target them?
Shit.
And I was like, gee, I'll see what I can do.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah,
the more things change, the more they stay the same.
And then for me, on my little tick box of collaborations, I think Back to the Future is probably one of my proudest ones. Because
I played the Telltale game of that.
Yay! Oh, how good's that? It's great. And Bob Gale. Oh God. Bob Gale was sort of, there's a bit in the Telltale game where there's a lawyer's office in Hillview, and it actually is called something and Gale something or other. He has got a hand in everything to do with Back to the Future. And I cannot tell you how excited I was when my first email came through from Bob Gale. Like, I mean, I knew I was drawing Back to the Future, but you don't think, oh my God, I'm going to be communicating with the guy who co-wrote the films. Like, that's crazy. But he's so invested in that creation still. And I love that. And he'll even now send out emails if he sees something silly in the news about a DeLorean. He'll be like, hey guys, look, the DeLorean's in the news. He loves that franchise still, and it shows in all the stuff that's being made about it.
It's a great franchise because I mean, I guess quality varies, but I don't think there's ever been an instance of something bad in the franchise. There was a cartoon series, which I understand wasn't very popular, but I think it's still good. I saw like an episode or two, I thought it was fine. The game, as we mentioned, is fucking phenomenal, and now the comic, which now that I know it exists, I will be reading!
Yeah, check it out. I was there's a book, if you like your trades, there's a collected book. So Who is Marty McFly was the series that I worked on. And it was basically Bob and John co-writing, and they took the questions we've all asked about Marty. Is that so? The Marty we're left with at the end of the films, yay, this isn't the family he grew up with, and and how does that affect someone? And those are the questions.
Fuck that! I want to know how a teenager becomes friends with a disgraced nuclear physicist.
I think they cover that. I think at some point that is covered. But yeah,
John Mulaney asked us that question, and now it's all we can think about.
Yeah, the origin story. Have you ever? Did you ever watch the YouTube video years ago that someone did called "Brokeback to the Future"?
No, but I want it now.
Look it up. It's everyone listening. Look it up. It's so.
I can't quit you, Marty.
Literally, why can't I quit you? Who the hell is Clara? Like it's anyone listening who's seen that video is probably now going, yes. It's a fantastic piece of editing, and it explains everything about the Marty Doc relationship.
And yet, it gave us Rick and Morty, perhaps the
I'm part of the dumb club who spent years. I didn't get it. I just didn't get it until someone told me, and then I was like, oh.
Oh, I get it. I was late to the party too. I was very much a late bloomer in the Rick and Morty fan. I like it now, but I'm not as invested as some other vocal people are. We won't talk about them.
Well, the beauty of comics is it's broad, and we can all find the thing that we enjoy, and we can choose the things we don't enjoy. And there's so much out there that if there's something we don't enjoy, we can just not invest in it, and other people will. I like that. So yeah, Rick and Morty. It's okay.
And something else I think you were probably very invested in was something that I know is available to read on my site, but I didn't have time to read it because I want to focus on breaks, was Dragonair.
Oh, wow.
Now, being the fantasy nerd that I am, that sounds like something I might want to get into.
So Dragonair, oh wow, yeah, we don't have long enough for me to talk about everything, but Dragonair is the comic I started with. Way before I was doing comics for a living, I joined a group called Sweat Drop, kind of helped form it early on, who are still around now. They became a publisher, and our main mission statement was about inspiring other people to get making comics, to basically be like, hey guys, comics are great. So we'd go around, we'd do conventions, we work with the Japanese embassy, we work with
what?
Tokyo.
Wait, I'm sorry, no, go back to the bit where you said you were working with the Japanese embassy.
Not like, okay, so not working with them in day job capacity or anything like that, but there's currently a competition that runs every year called the Manga G-Man competition that the embassy sponsor, and they give prizes out. And Sweat Drop is the kind of group that it feels weird to think, before the MCM was a thing, before Tokyo Pop was here and then left, before Neo Magazine, Sweat Drop was there, like this small band of comicers who were like trying to encourage people into this scene. And one of the things,
Weeaboos unite!
Yeah, basically that was it. So yeah, we had a conversation. It was lovely. They kind of reached out and were asking what they can do to support this as an industry over here, and so the G-Man was born. Not like we weren't solely responsible, I should make clear, but we got to be part of that process, which was great. But yeah, so the first thing I did with Sweat Drop in terms of my own stuff was Dragonair, and that was properly like, print it, take it down Staples, get it photocopied, fold it, stick staples in it, and make a little proper like homemade single issue comic and sell
held together with spit and twine,
pretty much, and blood. Literal blood, and sell it for like,
if I write it in my blood, that makes it better.
Yeah, so that was how it all started, and Dragonair was the very beginning for me. And I basically went back and said, I need to do, with what I've learned now, I want to go back and retell it, which is the graphic novel that's available now, which is already now a shocking idea. And there's still another book to come of it, but it's so every creator's got that kind of that project that's sort of there from the beginning, and it's sort of there going, finish me, and I still love it as a story, and
the ghost of stories not told,
right? And I'm so proud of the work I did on it. And that book, even now, when I look at that book and hold it in my hands, I'm like, oh my god, I designed this. And I because Sweat Drop, we had our own, we bought ISBNs, we operated as a publisher, we had an amazing printer based in Lithuania. So literally I hold that book and I'm like, I made this entire thing. And actually that's a feeling I haven't had for a long time. And this Break special edition is going to be the first time I have that since Dragonair, actually. So I'm really excited to hold something and be like, I made this thing.
This is my baby.
My baby.
Because you don't get that feeling when you do something like Back to the Future or something. Because, I mean, yeah, it's something you made, but it's in collaboration with a lot of other people.
Yeah,
and it's something that you didn't originate.
Yeah, you're still, crazy proud of it. And there's something magical about getting something. I mean, every time a Life is Strange issue turns up, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I can't believe I wrote this. Being a part of that is amazing. But the difference, and we always say this to people looking to get inverted commas into the industry, where we're literally make a comic and you're in the industry. There's something about setting out to go, I'm just gonna make a 20-page comic. It's gonna have it like a one-off story. I'm gonna print it. I'm gonna get to a table and sell it. And when you're holding that in your hands and you know that you've been responsible for every part of that, it's just such a high. It's an incredible feeling. And if you can get that far as well, then you know you've got a chance of working in comics. Because I think it's one thing having an amazing idea, being super talented, having a great imagination, but if you can't sit down and do the work and make the thing, then it's going to be really, really difficult. But yeah, making your own it's a bit of a drug.
It sounds like a drug, dear God.
It's why we all do it so much.
I'm imagining Train Spotting, but with comics or something.
Sniffing, smell that binding. Oh, that spot varnish. Oh, yeah, that kind of thing.
Oh, God. And of course, you're not just responsible for creating magnificent comics, you're also responsible, at least in part, from the research I may have done may have gone completely off the rails, but you're responsible for the comics village existing in MCM.
Yeah, I am. It's sort of another baby.
We have you to thank for comics being in a Comic Con.
Yay! I'm actually inordinately proud of it. It's So again, Sweat Drop, very early on, I couldn't even guess which year. It must have been about 2005 or something. So the MCM was already a thing, and it stood for Movies, Comics and Media. Obviously, these days, the MCM is a completely different company now. So we're talking about the group that were running it a few years back. And they came, to their credit, to MinamiCon, which is a tiny little anime con in Southampton, which has been running for a long time and still does run.
Went to university there. Woo.
Oh, did you? Awesome. See, our lives do cross over. And they just approached Sweat Drop and said, look, we don't, we've got a show that's meant to have comics in it, and hands on heart, we don't know much about comics. We come from Star Trek and sci-fi organizing. We're looking for people who can help us. Rather than us pretend we know what we're doing, we're looking for people who can help us with the comic side of things. And so I kind of ended up having a meeting with them and sort of took point on it. And at that point, I wasn't in comic, again, inverted commas, in comics. I was making comics, but it was very much on going around doing workshops, doing inspiring people, hopefully, to want to make comics. But I was doing it as a hobby as well. And so at the first event I did with them, I literally sent out invites to 10 friends I knew who were making, in my view, what I would see then as proper comics. And it was 10 creators.
Proper comics. That's not a thing.
It was John McCrae, Stas Johnson, Tony Lee, Andy Tong, just 10 people literally, and the MCM was happy to say, we'll give them a table for free, we'll just see how it goes. And for that, I was doing it for must have been 7 years or something. And by the point I stepped down, we'd gone from nothing to about 120 tables. And for a while, I used to run the Comic Village stage as well. I had over the years a few people jump in and help me out, which was so important because the area is so massive. It was really hard to manage. And back then we were still trying to organize it as a Comic Con within a con. So you did have, you had a stage and panels, but it was kind of all me and generally one other person helping me out. And it was exhausting, but it was the most satisfying exhaustion in the world. And I went into it again, jumping back to this whole fab thing at that time when I was going to conventions, because I was very much labeled exteriorly labeled as being like a manga creator, I would go to cons like Bristol, and literally we would be put in the manga ghetto. Like, comics are over there.
Oh, manga ghetto!
You
Oh
get
God!
to sit in here where they sell Pocky, and that's your place, you know. And it was very like, but this is crazy. I'm an X-Men fan. Like, I love Gambit.
Don't you pigeonhole me!
I want to be near Gambit. So when I started organizing the Comic Village, one of my key focuses was like, I'm not gonna isolate people by what they're perceived as making. So I kind of went in there with this solid intention of putting like webcomicers next to Marvel artists, next to manga artists, next to diary comics, next to to just go, this is one industry, guys. And that's something I'm really proud of doing, actually. And
you should be very proud of doing that, because it is very important that we just view it as a whole, as it's just like it's a thing, it's a medium, it's an art form.
Yeah, and I think now
and you shouldn't chop it up into little bits.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm about to chop it up into little bits and ask you, what is it about manga that's so appealing to you? Because bear in mind, I've read precisely one manga in my entire life. It was the second volume, I think, or third volume of Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, the one with the dog.
Yeah. The new the dog. Oh my Nissan. Let's not talk about that. So heartbreaking. So sad.
So I'm not a manga expert, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what is it about that is so appealing?
So I can get me in a pub with a pint of beer and we can talk about this forever. You
just explain the whole concept of manga for me right now.
So for starters, manga is everything, but also there is no such thing as manga. So.
Gotcha, right. Okay.
So very simple answer for you there. So my uncle's Japanese, so I grew up reading a lot of comics from Japan, and I was really lucky to get inspired by it. At the same time, my family is Italian, so I read a lot of comics from Italy, and incidentally, both Dylan Dog and a lot of the manga I was reading are all black and white. So anyone who says to you manga is always black and white and always has big eyes, you're like, okay, go and watch Disney's Tangled, go and read Dylan Dog, and now tell me that manga is all black and white and has big eyes. Like, there is no such thing as a manga style. There are definitely things that we can look at and tropes that we would go like, oh no, I can see how that's like. I would probably label that as manga. But
then Avatar: The Last Airbender comes along and you don't know what to think.
Well, and we're in such a good position now, actually. I think since those early Sweat Drop days, things have changed so much, and I'm so glad about it. I come from an interesting position because I bloody love Japanese comics. And to answer the initial question, what is it about manga? And if we assume that by manga I just mean comics that were made in Japan at the time when I was getting into comics, it jumps back to a lot of what we've talked about today, actually. Invariably, they were made on cheap printing, recycled paper, black and white ink. They were produced often very, very quickly. They still are often very quickly, and designed in a digestible way that you can read on the train and then throw away or recycle. And then you can go and buy a collected edition if you want to have like a book version of it. But they're mass produced. It's a huge industry, and they're produced cheaply. And this means that the creators, they'll have pages and pages to play with, and because they're limited to black and white and tone, they have to really be creative as well. So as a result, you end up with comics that can play with emotions in the way we talked about earlier, that I hope that Breaks is able to capture. A lot of it, your characters have to act. They have to act because you can't rely on color palette and you are literally on a black and white page with screen tone. So the emotion is there. It's real. You've got pacing is at the pace that the creator wants, because they're not limited to, high glossy color printing, which is not a fault of Western comics. I always want to say there's no right or wrong. It just is why it's different. So there's that, but also the key thing about manga when I was getting into it, and it's kind of ironic to say now, although we kind of come through what I'm about to say now, but when it was first out, manga to me meant everything. Like, you could tell a comic about anything. Whereas what I was seeing here, or what I had access to over here, was generally like, it's either going to be the Beano, Garfield, or Marvel and DC. Like, it felt from a very base level consumer, like as a teenager looking for comics, that was what it felt like I had access to. And don't get me wrong, I love Garfield and I love Marvel, so it wasn't a bad thing, but it felt limiting. It's why when I went to Italy, I would eat up Dylan Dog, because I was like, this is a supernatural mystery story, this is brilliant.
France does like stories about adventurers and omnisexual space pirates and shit like that. So.
But with Japanese comics, it's like, oh, this is an entire comic about someone who wants to make bread. This is an entire comic about someone who goes fishing often. This one is about a girl. Oh my God, it's about a girl who is at school and struggling with her exams and quite likes this boy over there. Or maybe she likes that girl over there. Like it was about anything. I could access any story. So when Sweat Drop was starting out, the reason we were so keen on trying to like spread the gospel of it was nothing to do with art style and everything to do with the fact that comics are unlimited. They're absolutely unlimited. But then what weirdly happened over here was the more people who became aware of the term, the smaller and more finite what they perceived it as being became. So it became like, oh, manga, that's all tentacle porn, or that's all Pokemon. Like, or I had experiences where I would be at an event. There was one where I was at an event in Spain, and I won't name names, and this was a long time ago, but I was in a fantastic comic shop in Madrid, and it was like everything was there. I was looking at like this real mixed Kate Beaton next to Ed Brubaker. Like it was a real, everything I wanted comics to be, really mixed and diverse and fun reading. And I was introduced by the person who was hosting us at the time, and I was there with another comicer. And the comicer was introduced as a comic artist, and I was introduced as a manga artist. And the moment the term manga passed this person's mouth, the shop owner kind of went, oh, we don't sell manga here. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to be polite. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it's just comics, but okay. And I could see in his face, he's already decided. He'd heard the word. He decided what I did. He'd never seen my work, but he decided what I did because he'd heard the word. And then I was walking around the shop and came across a Jiro Taniguchi section. And so I kind of called out, happily went, oh, look, you do have manga. As in, this is genuinely one of the biggest exports in Japanese comics for years. It's right here. So I said, oh, you do manga. And this guy just looked at me and was like, oh, we don't really count that as manga. Which made me just go like,
you may not count as a manga.
What do you count as manga? And it just means it's like, oh, I get. And there was a period of time, especially in England, I think, where to a lot of people, manga meant a little bit shit. Like, oh, it's not, I don't think it's very good, but kids like it. So we'll call it manga. Like there was a spate of these awful...
Like every other art form that was even close to good before it.
Yeah, exactly. It's gone through the rite of passage as an art form. That's exactly it. And thank goodness it's gone through it. And I feel like we've now hit a point. Like I'm not now being turned down for jobs because the word manga is associated with me, which I genuinely was. I lost work because people would be like, oh, I'm sorry, we're not looking for a manga artist. It's like, for God's sake, it's just comics. Yeah.
Especially because there's so much anime and manga out there. This isn't necessary, but stuff I find interesting. That's influenced by British culture. And I saw a movie not too long ago, Mary and the Witch's Rose.
Yeah.
And a brilliant movie based very much on British culture. And so if they can appreciate our stuff, surely we can appreciate their stuff and adapt it into our own stuff.
And it was weird, we absolutely appreciated it, but it was almost like there was this desperate need to hold it as a separate entity or categorize it into something, or it's definitely just for kids, or it's definitely just porn, or like very, very bizarre. And yeah, it was
It's like saying radio dramas are great, but podcasts are for, I don't know, fetuses. Who knows?
It's just, yeah. I mean, labels are a fascinating discussion anyway, aren't they? I speak to retailers and friends who are in retail, and I can see why they're needed. But it's very hard when you're in the creative side to feel like, oh no, but I don't want to be categorized as something. But we could talk about it for a really long time. But yeah, so Japanese comics in a nutshell, to me, manga meant it could be about everything. And thank goodness we're now seeing a world where the industries are shifting, and we are seeing comics from all around the world now being about whatever the hell they want to be about, which is just fantastic. And I think manga brought a whole swathe of new readers, young readers, female readers. It did a massive amount for queer culture in comics. Like I think it was like a wave that swept through, and some people were happy to go with it, and some people fought it a bit. And thankfully, it seems to have now settled. We don't need the wave anymore. It's now just here, and integrating, which is great.
It's here, it's queer, and we enjoy it.
Exactly.
Speaking of something that's here, the Kickstarter for Breaks Volume 2 is here, and you've exceeded your goal of 8,000 squidderonis.
Oh, I can't tell you how. Oh, it's just amazing. It's so amazing. So I've never done anything.
If only we had done this like a week before now or something, but we came a bit late to the party. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. And this is great because again, I've never done a Kickstarter before. So when I had a load of amazing advice from friends who've run them before. And so when I was setting that target, I went for the absolute lowest I could set that's going to cover, at the worst case scenario, print and postage. So the Kickstarter I've done is literally so that we can have a special edition. So hitting that target is absolutely amazing because it means we can have a special edition. But at the moment, it doesn't mean I'm making any money. It means I can print the book and I can post the book and I can promote the book. So it's never a bad...
Well, you're £449 over the goal, so
I know.
Capers, keep donating, because there's rewards, there's tiers, there's stretch goals, so
there's some shiny stuff on offer, and the secret hope with it, and it's not anything you can assume from a Kickstarter. Obviously, I'm so grateful for getting to where I am, but the secret hope is, as we were saying at the beginning of this podcast, Breaks is made very much in my spare time when I can make it. It's a page a week, and at the moment I have a Patreon running that affords me 2 days a month, and those guys are fab because they've allowed me 2 days a month. But if the Kickstarter can hit the secret target in my head, if I'm able to say, right, I don't need to pick up contract work for a few months, I can work on this and I can actually get Arc 3 done and have the next book out like within a year rather than waiting another 2 years to do it. So that's the secret hope of it, is that it does well enough that actually it's not just about printing the book. It then becomes about funding the third arc, which would be awesome. So there's never a bad time to promote it. Trust me, it doesn't matter that we've hit that goal. We can definitely, now that the book is definitely happening, now it's a case of, if you want to get a copy, get on the Kickstarter. It's not about funding the print anymore. It's about grabbing a copy of this limited special edition, and in doing so, help fund us making Arc 3, which is really exciting.
I'm not sure if I want to get this comic. Oh, wait a minute. It's exclusive, it's special edition. Holy shit, I want it.
Once they're gone, they're gone. That's it. We're making a finite amount, because obviously then Soaring Penguin will be doing the standard trade edition. So this one is like this is the special limited, help put money back into the series edition.
Yeah. And there's a lot of information there about the comic, about the first volume, and also about the second volume, what you're going to do. And I love the tagline you've got for it. A love story, but a bit broken. And that perfectly encapsulates what it is. It is a love story, but it's not like a traditional happy-go-lucky, ooh, you make me live now, honey.
It's not a clear path, but also importantly, and again, I keep talking about the things we set out to do with this series, importantly, it's an LGBTQ positive story, in that it is a bit broken as a story because they have difficulties in their life, but falling in love is not one of those difficulties. Like it's the thing that once they find each other, that's going to get them through stuff. This is not I hate the term bury your gaze, but it's not that story, No,
because we don't care about that. I mean, you would know a lot about presenting that in a very positive way, because you did the graphic novel. You worked on the graphic novel Love is Love.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Wow, you have done your research.
I mean, Wikipedia is very generous. It was made in aid for the victims of the Orlando shooting, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, really important.
That's a very good thing you did then.
Yeah, and a nice crossover with that. I drew that one with Nunzio De Filippis and Christina Weir, who were my writers on Avalon Chronicles for Oni Press. We did a couple of books with them a while ago, and it was coloured by Christina Strain, who I just bloody love anyway, and she coloured the first cover of Breaks, so the book one cover. So it's like this lovely comics web. And Christina and Nunzio are now writing the Dragon Age comics. So where I'm doing Life is Strange, they're doing Dragon Age, another of my favorite video games. And part of the reason
I tried to play Dragon Age Inquisition. Kicked Putty Geeks Horsley, who I work with on the site, encouraged me to do so.
No,
I said,
don't
jump
in on Inquisition. No.
I couldn't get into it. I need to start with Origins, obviously.
Origins, I mean, it's dated now. Visually it's dated, but Origins is still a solid story. You care about the characters, and then by the time Dragon Age 2 came about, it's a very flawed game. Everyone who loves it admits it's a flawed game. It has repeated dungeons and, graphic glitches. However, the way you talk about stories is the way I talk about stories, from a character-driven, emotive. There is no experience like it in
Mass Effect.
Well, obviously Mass Effect is a bit like it because it's BioWare again. So that's the only experience that is like it.
Back when BioWare was good.
Let's not go down that route. Let's
Positive, happy.
Yeah.
We're very happy. The Breakthrough is coming out. The Kickstarter is all great for it. So now it's fully funded and everything. when can we hope to see first shreds of it?
I've been in conversation with Rich, Comics Printing UK, who's I think someone did a tweet the other day saying he's the unspoken saint of the British comics scene, which is, probably not far off. He prints so many things that you see on tables at events. He's responsible for them. And he'd been recommended to me so much by friends. So I've been dealing with him and he's hilarious. So he's been, being very patient with me while I'm putting together how this hardback's going to look and how the dust jacket's going to look. And so we've already pretty much, the interiors are done. The special edition gallery is done. The dust jacket is done. The very last thing that needs to be done is the cover. I didn't want to color the cover myself. As I said, Christina Strain colored book one's cover, which was just gorgeous. And then I thought, how am I going to follow Christina Strain coloring my cover? I mean, bear in mind, she was like, I was obsessed with Runaways when she was colouring it. It's like, my God, she's colouring the beginning.
Oh, she works on Runaways.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah, she was a Runaways colorist.
I like Runaways.
She's amazing. So how am I going to follow that? But book two, I just confirmed on Friday, I've got Trina Farrell colouring it, which is awesome because she's amazing.
I'm going to pretend like I know that name.
Go look her up and you'll instantly go, oh my God, she colours all my favourite comics. She's fabulous.
Trina Farrell.
Spelled Triona, but pronounced Trina. In fact, I did a tweet this morning linking to her, actually. I need to do more updates on it. But so she is going to be colouring the cover. So that's pretty much the last thing to put in place. So the Kickstarter finishes on the 31st of July. So nothing can happen till it's done because we're going to obviously see where it all falls, like find out what situation we're in at the end of it, really. Because it's weird to say, yeah, now I know the book's happening, but how this Kickstarter ends is literally going to tell me what I'm doing with my career for the next few months, because it's whether am I taking other work? Am I focusing on this? Like, can I afford to focus on this? But regardless of any of that, the printing is, I think we're going to basically slot it in for the end of August because he's a very busy man. So yeah, I think I put on the delivery dates for Kickstarter. It's going to be December because I wanted to make sure no one was disappointed and I give that window of time. But I will not be surprised if people end up getting their goodies a bit earlier than that, to be honest. So we're allowing for safety.
What
time.
Lucky people they will be.
I know. So jump on and bag your copy now with your smoochy dust jacket and your art prints. I also have a limited number of commission slots on there as well, if people fancy going a bit more high end and getting something original from me.
Oh God, there's so much content on this Kickstarter. The only thing it's missing really is a video. You gotta have a video.
But that requires my face, and that's, no one needs that.
You perform on stage. You've been on camera before. Didn't you used to? I think you used to, if I remember correctly. Didn't you used to present an anime-related TV show?
Yes, I did, but I never had to look back at it. And I look at this Kickstarter a lot. I don't want to see my face all over it. When you're on stage, you don't have to see yourself, and when you do TV, you don't have to see yourself. So. Yeah.
That's why I do podcast. I have the face for it. Thankfully, though, we do have some faces on the Kickstarter. We have Cortland's and Ian's faces. There's a cute little thing of them saying, do the thing, get the shinies.
Yeah, and to be fair, my face is on it. At the bottom, there's a picture of me and the boys. It's just me wearing fake glasses and a red wig. So I'm there, but I'm in disguise.
With a little flower crown on top, apparently.
Yes. Of course.
They look very, very unhappy that you're there. They'd rather you wouldn't be there and they'd be together.
They're kind of hard to work with. They don't like doing the promo stuff, they're on set, wheel. They'll do their job and then they leave, they've got exams to study for, so.
Yeah, also they're so goddamn hot. Look at them with their boy band looks. Shit.
So smoldery.
God, they are as well. And on that note, I think we're going to end this show. Thank you very much, Emma, for joining us today on this ridiculous show.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
And if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops! And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes, like episode with Ben Aronovich and Anthony Johnston, all those sort of people. You can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, or Spotify, or podcapers.com. We have a Patreon as well. Check out the rewards, patreon.com/AP2HYC. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe comment on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC, or email us at podcapers@AP2HYC.com. ab2hyc.com. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone with the Red Booth 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. Cue the music!